Interest expenses will continue to rise, not just in America, but in many other places around the world. And this will likely displace other things such as Medicare, Medicaid, other social benefits. And in my opinion, this will result in more money printing sooner or later. First things first, inflation, right? I'm going to be frank. I don't believe that any of the inflation numbers that any of the governments around the world are putting out there are legitimate. I think the real inflation numbers are significantly higher, regardless of how they're manipulating the statistics. And we all know that every 4 or 5 years, they come up with some adjustments, they come up with some changes. And this is required to essentially make the numbers look lower than they are. In reality, right? If you've been buying any kind of the same candy, any kind of the same fast food, and even your rent, your college payments, we all know that over the past 10 to 20 years, the prices of these things have been going higher and higher. And post-COVID, that this has accelerated even more. And not only inflation is something that is persistent in the background, but we're also seeing something that's known as shrinkflation, right? Not only are the prices increasing, but the sizes of many goods and products are becoming smaller as well, right? You're seeing this in different kinds of candy. Just here, comparing the decades, you're seeing that corporations are optimizing in such a way to give you less and less of the product in order to drive up their profit margins, revenues, etc. Right? It's different kinds of chips, candy, everything is becoming smaller, right? This isn't only happening in candy or supermarket goods, but that's just where it's the most pronounced. Coming back to the idea of wealth inequality, right? Depending on how you measure it, it's at the level of the 1800s, right? The wealth of the top 1%, and especially the top 0.1%, has been consistently skyrocketing since the turn of the millennium, while the wealth of the middle classes or the lower 50% has been flat at best. And if you think the situation in the Western world is bad, the situation in emerging markets is even more extreme. We have skyrocketing loneliness and meaninglessness all around the world. We have skyrocketing searches for where to meet people, how to meet people, how to stay in touch, social groups near me, etc. Right? And just as of 2025, these searches are at an all-time high, and they've been climbing since 2005, right? So this is a persistent trend. And frankly, this trend, as well as everything that I've already mentioned so far, I think all of these trends are going to continue persisting, right? And it's only going to get more intense and more extreme from here on out. You have to, I've been pro-capitalist my whole life, but even I admit that the problems, there's numerous problems with late capitalism. The biggest of which, in my opinion, is that late capitalism, it devolves into addiction engineering at mature stages, right? Why? Because if you get millions of people or hundreds of millions of people addicted to something, that actually represents recurring cash flows, which is beneficial, which is the holy grail for high equity prices, right? If you turn your users or customers into addicts, that is recurring cash flows, recurring revenues for years to come, right? And in my opinion, this affects literally every single industry, right? Pharmaceuticals, video games, entertainment, gambling of all kinds, right? Fast food, pornography, all of these things, they lead to not only chemical addictions, but especially, in my opinion, more sinister ones, which are behavioral addictions, right? And all of these, essentially, the capitalist machine is incentivized to make their products and services as addictive as possible, because once again, addiction means profit. And, I think many of you would agree that we are living at a time of a spiritual decay and extreme nihilism, right? Over-sexualization of culture, right? Everything, like I've already mentioned, is designed to just maximize your dopamine per second output as you're consuming that product and service, right? People are doing increasingly crazy and degenerate things on camera for attention, for clout. We have, again, rising use of porn, rising use of OnlyFans. All social media platforms, they essentially devolve into softcore pornography over time. And a lot of people are idolizing and mimicking this lifestyle on social media. Like the famous Black and Peas song, kids want to act like what they see in the cinema, right? And so degeneracy is being celebrated, and goes without saying that Gen Z is much less spiritual than previous generation. Things together, right? What does all of this mean? The conclusions are that you're living in a world that is significantly more expensive than the one your father lived in. You're also living in a world that is already, and going to be extremely more so, competitive than the one your father lived in. Governments around the world, banks around the world, they're going to print money and they're going to borrow more money. Wealth inequality and income inequality are only going to continue to grow. AI is coming not only for your job, but also for your identity. And spiritual decay is everywhere, and nihilism is on the rise, right? So, in my opinion, what this will result in is that all of this will make people seek assets that can outperform inflation, the stock market, and even Bitcoin, right? And at the same time, parallel to this, I think all of this will also make people seek groups that can provide them with meaning, belonging, excitement, adventure, and connection.